Good Thursday morning, everybody. Glad to have you here. If you will, like, share, comment, and then join me in the book of Acts, the 28th chapter, where we will be looking at just one verse that just has a good reminder for us that, once again, it's one of those verses where you may look at it originally, just glancing at it and think, well, there's not much there. There's not a whole lot of theology in that verse. And verse 1 of chapter 28 may fall into that category, but stick with me a minute, and I believe there's a good reminder for us, a good lesson, as we look at this verse. Verse simply says, after we were brought safely through, we then learned that the island was called Malta. So Paul has now been shipwrecked and delivered. He has safe, just as God had promised. God had promised to save Paul, and he did. God had also saved everyone else that was on the ship. And again, this had been a terrible storm. This had been a horrible trial and test that they had went through. Not only the storm, but we saw that they wanted originally to kill all the captives, as was because again the law, as we talked about, was that if you were responsible for a prisoner and you let him get away, then they would kill the guard. And so they were intending to kill everybody, all the captives that they had on the ship, and they were convinced not to do that. When they tried to run the ship on ground, that didn't even work exactly as they planned, as the ship fell apart and they had to swim for land, or I guess those who couldn't swim were had to float in on pieces of wood from the ship. But whatever the case, they've all arrived safely on an island that they now learn is called Malta. Again, it had been a violent storm they've came through, a situation where, according to verse 20 in verse 27, says that everybody on the ship would basically give up any hope for survival except for Paul. Again, they had the sailors wanted to abandon ship and let the people who were on it just die. The plan to kill the soldiers, had Paul not stepped up and spoken, they were going to kill them all. But we come back and remember the promise that God made. God promised that he would keep Paul safe, that he would deliver him all the way to Rome, that he would be with Paul even through all these various things, and any one of those things could have meant the death of Paul, but God provided for him. God protected him. And again, a simple verse with maybe, again, for some people, not a theology, but those opening words, and after we were brought safely through. We were brought safely through. What a great reminder of the promises of God, the faithfulness of God, the power of God, just all kinds of words that we could insert there. Faithfulness, power, again, to do what he said, the comfort of God, all those things that are revealed to us in those simple words after we were brought safely through. Many of you probably remember Paul Harvey back in the day and his radio commentaries, and he would do one, I remember, in this area anyway. It would often come on the radio around about 5:30 or so in the afternoon. And he would tell you a story that seemed like it was going in one direction. And then at the very end, he would give you the conclusion to that story that went in just the opposite direction. And he would say, and now you know the rest of the story. Thank God for chapter 28. That tells us that Paul and all those on board that ship went safely through. Because if you've been reading and you've been keeping up with it, you have to assume that they all died in that storm, all died in a terrible shipwreck, all died because the guards killed the convicts. But instead, they came safely through. And you know, one of the things that I'm sure if you've been following God long, you've learned that he's always faithful and make sure that his people come safely through the storm. Remember that today, whatever you face. God makes sure his people always come safely through. Have a good day. We'll see you here tomorrow morning.